Hi, Cherokee Middle Schoolers! This is Ms. Jane here to talk to you all about accordion bookbinding. So accordion bookbinding is actually my personal favorite way to make sketchbooks. I love being able to have all the pages be continuous, and I run out of room a lot when I draw, so it's kind of nice to be able to move on to the next page and still continue my drawing as I go. So without further ado, let's get started. So the materials you need will include glue. I think Elmer's glue works really well, but Mod Podge can work as well. A pencil, some paper, scissors. Optionally, you can use cardboard for the cover. I like doing that because it gives it a nice solid base, but if you don't have that available, that is a-okay. You could also use a ruler if you want. I actually don't have a ruler, so I don't use one in this video, but it could be helpful. And you could use a brush for the glue to kind of smoothen it out a little bit. That's all up to you. So I am going to start out actually by cutting my paper in half. So if you have paper that's already the size in terms of height that you want it to be, you can actually skip this step. But since I don't have a ruler, I am just taking my piece of paper and making a tiny dent in the center of it, on the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to use a straight edge to draw a line that I can use to connect these two spots. So now I'm going to use my scissors and cut along the line that I just made, and this is just helping make a good height for the size of my book. And if you're doing this, if this is a step you end up having to do, it is important to make sure you keep your pages lined up. So using one hand to hold your paper down while the other hand cuts your paper can be super helpful for this. So now what I'm going to do is take all of my paper and glue it all together into one huge long strip. The strip of paper that I'm making stretches all the way across my living room, and my living room is admittedly pretty small, but it is a big sheet of paper. So it helps to put a piece of paper down underneath the pages that you're gluing, because ultimately some of your glue is going to slide off the page. So you don't need much, and really all you're trying to do is line your pages up so that you can glue them. So I have my first set done here, and I'm just going to keep on gluing them together in sets of 2. It's really important that you don't glue them all together in a line at once, because sometimes your line will start out straight and you won't realize until it's done that it is kind of warped across to the side. So doing it in sets of 2 and then gluing those together after the fact is really important. So I'm doing this 3 or 4 times, and after I'm done with that, my next step is actually going to be taking my sets of 2 and gluing them together. So you can see I'm lining these ones up, and it's the exact same process as what I did before. I'm just going to line them up, make sure that they're straight, and then glue them together from this point and let them dry. I'll do this with the other set as well, and then let them all dry in one big long line. So now that they're dry, you can see how long my accordion book is, and I could make it a lot longer or shorter too. I will also show you later how to add pockets to it, but right now I just want to show you some basic folding techniques. So you'll start out by going to each end and folding over a little flap about 1 inch long, and you're going to use this to attach your cover to your book. So this will happen on both sides of your paper. Even though you can't see it on the screen, don't be fooled, it's happened on both sides. And now I'm going to take my paper and fold it in half, straight down the center. And that's going to be a really important guiding line. So then you'll pull your other pages back, and it'll kind of start to create a zigzagging pattern. You'll start to be able to see it the more that you go. And you can just keep folding your paper back and forth, but starting from the center is really important, because otherwise it's super easy for your pages to get slightly out of line, and then they won't line up quite right. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to fold my paper back and forth, and An important part of this is thinking about creating a zigzagging pattern when you look at your book. So it'll kind of zigzag back and forth, and that means some of your folds you'll have to flip inwards or outwards to make them sit right. But that's alright, because as you can see, I have the first part of my book done. You can kind of see with the way it works, it is all able to open up like this, and it can unfold to create a full accordion. Like, it can still unfold to be a full sheet, but it can also be condensed into just the single piece of paper as well. And I can fold through it pretty easily. You can see how my drawings could end up having a continuous line through them or something like that. So this next thing I wanted to show you quick is how to make a pocket in your accordion. And this is not a necessary step. I wanted to tack it on at the end just so you could see how it works. But I do think it's really nice if you're someone who likes to collect things as a part of your artwork. I know I like to collect newspaper clippings and leaves and just different things that I find, so this can kind of be a helpful way to have a little pocket to set all of your things inside of that you find. But yeah, so all you do to create that is just fold your paper upwards to create a small flap at the bottom, and that flap will end up working as a pocket. So now that this part of your book is done, you get to start working on the cover, which is super exciting, and there's a lot of ways you could take this. You could just take a piece of paper and use that as your cover. It'd be nice if you had a different colored piece of paper, like a grocery bag or something like that at home. But I wanted to show you how you can use cardboard. So I'm going to take a piece of cardboard from this old cereal box and use it to make my square. So I'm going to line my paper up with the cardboard, and then I'm just going to draw a little line with my pencil to trace the outside of it and be able to have a line that I can use as a guide to cut my shape. I will actually be cutting out 2 of these as I go, so one for the front of the book and one for the back of the book. And for the next step, I just want to make sure that it lined up with my piece of paper, which it did. So now I know the back is going to be the same size as the front, so I'm going to trace it again to make sure that I have it right. And then I will just repeat the same steps as I did with my other cover. So as you can see, I've completed my 2 covers, and the next step I want to do is to cover them with this beautiful blue construction paper I found. So I'm going to cut this construction paper to size. If you have something else at home that would work better for you, feel free to use that as well. As I said before, brown paper bags are a great choice. And there's a lot of other recycled materials you can use as well. There's some interesting newspapers, or you could create collages. There's a ton of different options for what you could do with your cover. This is one of the simpler ones. So now you can take your glue and put it onto your construction paper. You can see I'm adding some thin layers of glue. I don't really want to add too much, and especially near the edge I want to be careful because it kind of can glob outwards when you add the cardboard to it later if you aren't careful with that. So just a nice thin layer across the paper. And if you don't have a paintbrush at home, that is totally fine. You are able to use cardboard or paper. Anything you can use to push glue across the surface will work just fine. So now I'm going to add my cardboard on top of here and really press it down. I am going to use my scissors to cut along the corners of the paper so that the paper will have a smooth transition when it gets pushed onto the cardboard, because otherwise the paper corners can overlap quite a bit. So now I am going to spread my glue out a little bit more and then push the flaps that I've created down onto the cardboard. And be careful with this, you'll probably get some glue on your fingers. It's part of the bookmaking experience. And then once you have them all pushed down, you can let your book cover dry and start working on the other one. So you'll just repeat this exact same process on the other side. So now that I've completed both of my covers, I'm going to attach them to my book. So I'm going to start out by cutting these thin little slits in the side, and that'll really help the book cover get attached. So I'm going to do this on both ends, and then I'm just going to glue my book covers to the little flaps that I have made along these edges. And I'm really going to want to make sure that I repeat this on both sides. So now that I've attached both the front and back cover, there's just one final step, and that is to cover up. You can see how this paper flap kind of looks a little bit ugly with the cardboard there as well. So the one final step is to take a piece of paper and glue it in place there. So I have this one here, and I actually ripped it to make the shape because, like I said before, I don't have a ruler. But I actually also like it outside of that because I kind of like having a bit of a fringe. It makes it a little bit more interesting. So try out whatever you want. There's a lot of fun options with this. There's so much interesting color matching that goes into bookbinding that you can really get lost in it. So now you can see I am just about done. The only thing I'm doing is gluing that final piece of paper down, and then I'm all set. You can see that my pages can be pulled out into one big long accordion, or I can flip through them and use them more like a traditional book. It's really great to have all these options. I hope you liked watching this video, and I will see all of you in art class. Have a wonderful rest of your day.